Everybody. We'll get started in just 1 second. Grab a notebook. You're probably going to want to take some notes. Um, okay. I'm going to see if this works where people can just jump in and I won't have to admit them. Okay. All right. So I'm so glad to see so many of you here. Welcome. While people are joining, and hopefully they'll be able to get right in without having to sit in the waiting room. So, and I know you had to, but hopefully it'll work and others will not have to. So, okay. Um, yeah, I've got a note taker going on here. So, if all goes well, I'll be able to give you a transcript summary as well as the recording. And we are recording, and there will be a replay. So you will be able to listen again. And if you have to leave early for some reason, don't worry. You'll be able to catch up by listening to the replay. But stick around if you can, because I'm going to do questions, answer all of your questions at the end, rather than answer them as they come up. So I may have to ask you to clarify a little bit what you were referring to if you ask a question about something that I talked about like half an hour ago. I may not be able to remember. So try to make, if you put your questions into the chat, make them as specific as you can so that I'll be able to answer them for you. And what's also going to be helpful is to label your question, because sometimes you might put comments in the chat that aren't really questions. So if you have a question that you want me to pay attention to and to answer, then here's what I want you to do. Try to remember to do this. Before the question, put in all caps the word question. And as I'm scrolling through the chat at the end to answer questions, I will be able to quickly spot the ones that I have to answer. Okay? All right. So it looks like we're good to go, and people are jumping in and they don't need to sit around in a waiting room. So today we're talking about a simple strategy. And some of you are here and you know me and you've worked with me before, so you probably already know how to use this strategy because I use it with my clients all the time. And it has become almost like a default. Like someone will ask me a question, my dog is doing this, or my dog is, stressed about this certain specific thing. And one of the things that we all kind of always fall back on is, have you done this particular thing? And I'll get to it in a second. I don't mean to be mysterious about it, but it requires some explanation. So we're going to get to that. All right. So what I'm going to do right now, everybody grab something to take some notes. And if you see something that you want to remember, feel free to take a screenshot of the slide so that you'll have it if you need it. Okay? All right. So let me get started. Very exciting. Okay. All right. So I'm going to make your pictures really small and move this, and I'm going to go into present mode here so that it fills up the whole screen. If it will hurry up and do that. Okay. Present. Okay. Awesome. All right. So hopefully you all can see my screen. If we ever get to a tech problem where you can't hear me, you can't see the screen, you can just unmute and tell me. Say, hey, hey, stop. And then, well, I'll just have to figure out how to deal with it. Okay. So today's topic is the simple strategy that helps sensitive dogs feel calm in hectic situations without treats, training, or desensitization. And hectic situations can be anything that the dog thinks is hectic. You might think it's, perfectly normal, nothing unusual here. But as we're going to discuss as we get into this topic, we have to remember that dogs have a very intense and a very carefully defined sensory system that is much more sensitive to input from the outside world than we are many times. And it also depends on what we're focusing on. We may not be focusing on the thing that the dog is focused on, so we kind of miss what's really going on. So those are just a couple of the ordinary things that can interfere with with the way we work with dogs and the way we try to help them. So let's move on. So this is the next slide. So today's agenda. We're going to talk about, first of all, the root cause of anxiety in sensitive dogs. Because the rule of cause effect is in play here. And you all know what that is. Every cause has an effect, and every effect has a cause. That's a universal rule. So, when we're talking about anxiety or behavior that is an expression of anxiety, we need to understand the cause if we're going to have any kind of an effect on the result. And then why traditional approaches are unsuccessful with anxious dogs. Next, one simple evidence-based strategy that expands a dog's capacity to cope with stress. And that's the core content of this webinar, that evidence-based strategy. But before we get to that, there are certain things that you need to understand first so that the strategy will, it'll be the final puzzle piece that just falls into place and you will get it. And then finally, how to bounce back from stress consistently without guilt, frustration, or grief. And you may wonder why I put the word grief in there. And that's because when we're experiencing troublesome to us behaviors from your dogs, and if they're troublesome to us, they're certainly troublesome to the dog. And we can't help but feel a sense of loss for what we wish we had instead of this unpleasant situation. We wish that we had a dog that could cope with anything, that you could take anywhere, that wouldn't stress out when he sees another dog and that kind of thing. So we kind of, even though we may not always be fully aware of that, there is that sense of loss. And it affects how we interact with our dogs. It affects the relationship. So we want to address that. We want to find a way to bounce back. And in order to do that, I'm going to explain to you an opportunity where you can continue to practice this strategy and also add other strategies that work in the same way so that you have a really expanded repertoire of effective things that you can do with your dogs. And then what you're going to learn today, we're going to talk about what sensitivity is, because I really think that there's a lot of misunderstanding about that and why dogs overreact. And I put overreact in quotes because that's a judgmental thing. We're judging it as an overreaction. From the dog's point of view, it might not be an overreaction at all. It might be perfectly aligned with the way they're feeling. And next, how and when to interrupt a dog's stress pattern. We're going to talk about what that stress pattern is And the sequence of emotional responses that happen in the body. These are physiological changes that are taking place in the dog's body. And it's a pattern, it's a predictable pattern, but we have the power to interrupt it. But we have to know when to interrupt it and how in order to be effective. And then finally, how to close the gap between overwhelm and calm. Okay, so if you're here, I want to make sure that you understand whether or not this is going to be beneficial to you. So this webinar is going to be beneficial for you if you are caring for a sensitive dog, whether it's your own personal dog, whether it's clients' dogs, whether it's a dog that you've had in the past. Because if you can, even though the dog may no longer be with you, if there was a question about what went wrong and what you could have done differently, and did you do enough, and did you fail the dog, I want to set your mind at ease and help you to understand what may or may not have happened, even whether it's past or present. And that knowledge is going to serve you very well going forward for current dogs or any future dogs that you have. So if sensitivity in a dog has ever been an issue for you, then you're in the right place and this is going to help you. Also, you're in the right place if you're dissatisfied with the results that you're getting now. And this goes to the part of this webinar where I'm going to talk about why traditional approaches are typically unsuccessful or partially successful, or maybe temporarily successful. You have a little bit of success and then all of a sudden there's a regression. So we'll talk about that. And then you're in the right place if you're curious. If you're curious about other approaches to healing anxiety, whether you have an anxious dog or not, if you have a curiosity, a real desire to understand the current widespread problem with our pet dogs, that there is so much anxiety, so much reactivity among our pet dogs. It's much more widespread than even I ever dreamed it was until I started to look into it. So if you're curious about that, then you're going to get some answers today. And by the end of the webinar, this is what you can expect. You will understand how stress affects dogs. And you'll understand it on a much deeper level than you understand it now, because right now you may think, well, when my dog gets stressed, he barks, he paces, he pants, he, um, hides, or whatever he does. So those are the observable behaviors. But what you need to understand is what's going on inside the dog. What's happening in his body, physiologically, emotionally, mentally. And then you'll also be able to implement a powerful calming strategy. And that's what I'm going to teach you. And finally, you'll have an opportunity to add more strategies to your skill set. And that's an opportunity I'm going to talk about as we progress through a webinar, because it doesn't have to end with this hour or two that we spend together. We can continue to work on this, because what I'm going to teach you is a piece of the puzzle. It's a very powerful piece. It's a very important piece. But by itself, it's not going to necessarily be the complete answer. So you may need to do more. Okay. And I want to explain a little bit why I do the work that I do. If you attended the conference last week, you know that the focus was on helping dogs that are struggling with sensitivity, with anxiety, with other kinds of emotional and physical issues, and ways that we can help them that are outside the narrow container of just, training or behavior modification or things like that. And there's nothing wrong with those things. I'm not condemning them by any stretch. But what I'm telling you is that in in many situations, when you're dealing with a very sensitive or a reactive or traumatized dog, those things don't address the source of the problem. When we understand the root cause of the problem, you'll see what I mean by what the
Yeah.
disconnect is. And so, up until COVID, the turning point in a lot of our lives, right? Um, I worked primarily one-on-one with people in their homes. I did home visits and I worked with dogs. So I had a very limited um, uh, area of people that I worked with just in my immediate area. But in 2020, we all had to either make a pivot or make a complete change. And I loved my work and I didn't want to give it up. And so I started to work with people online. And by doing that, I was able to go way beyond any kind of geographical limits. And I started to reach out to people, first of all, outside of my own geographical area, and then in the country, and then other countries, and then globally. And it has been such an enlightening and such a powerfully satisfying experience for me that um, I am just driven by this purpose to continue doing this because what I discovered in the process of working with people throughout the world is that sensitive, traumatized, anxious dogs are not limited to my little, hometown area, that it's a global problem and it's a huge global problem. The majority of pet owners who were questioned reported that their pet dogs suffered from some form of anxiety, whether it's noise phobia or separation anxiety or fear of strangers, fear of other dogs, or, there's a long list of things that dogs are sensitive to. And a lot of the sensitivity comes from early life trauma. And so when I became aware of that, my purpose was no longer in question. I was determined that I was going to reach out to the best of my capacity, as much as I possibly could, to as many dog parents as I possibly could reach and let them know that there's a better way to help their dogs. And in order to find that better way, I had to research it because what I was doing when I was doing home visits was, just the typical behavior training, obedience training. But I was starting to see that there were more and more dogs, client dogs, that were sensitive, that were stressed. And I was sensing a disconnect, like the things that I had been teaching for decades were somehow not landing the way they used to. They weren't affecting the dogs. And it wasn't that the people weren't doing their best. They were. They were following instructions. They were doing the very best they could. And so was I. But there was a disconnect. And COVID, as disastrous as it was, pushed me to the point where I had to find out what that difference was so that I could help people. And that's part of what I'm going to teach you today is what I found in the research that I've done over the past 5 years. Okay, let's go to the first part of this talk. We're going to talk about the root cause of anxiety in sensitive dogs. And like I said, cause effect, we have to know what it is. And I don't know why that red line is there. um, I may have to figure that out in a minute. I'm not going to worry about it right now. Let me just see. Okay. Okay. All right. Now, what is sensitivity? Let's see. I just want to pause for a minute. Okay, good. I'm just checking a couple of things, making sure that all the technology is working the way it's supposed to. So I want to go back. Okay, what is sensitivity? Sensitivity is misunderstood. Sensitivity is a characteristic in people as well as in animals. And we're confining our discussion to dogs, but um, animals are sensitive as well. It's not a fault. It's not something that has to be fixed. It's a characteristic. And there's an estimate that about 20% of the human population falls into the category of highly sensitive people. And you may have heard that term before. And it refers to a characteristic of humans, and I'm going to include dogs in this description as well, who process their environment in a very intense and a very detailed way. And because it's so intense and because it's so detailed, meaning that they notice things that the average person wouldn't notice, details in the environment. So, for example, if you have a sensitive dog who's sensitive to his environment, if you move something to a different place, say you take a piece of outdoor furniture and you take it out of where it normally is and you put it in a different place. A sensitive dog is going to notice that and react to it and need to check it out and to make sure that it's okay. And a less sensitive dog will notice it and move on because it's not relevant. They're not processing that new information in as deep a way as the sensitive dog is. So sensitivity is a characteristic. We do not uh, endeavor in any way to remove it or to change it because it is what it is. What our obligation is, if we have a highly sensitive dog, is to recognize that that sensitivity is a gift and that it's our job to help that individual, whether it's a human or an animal, to cope with that intense processing of the environment. And that's what the practices that I teach in the strategy that I'm going to give you, that's the underlying purpose of it. To support that sensitive animal's ability to cope with the intensity of their processing of that environmental change or that environmental experience. Okay. So what happens with high sensitivity, and we can also include in this dogs that are anxious for a specific reason. They might be anxious because of an early life trauma or a trauma that is more recent, a trauma that they experienced in adult life. And trauma, just to clarify what I'm talking about when I say trauma, it's an experience that the individual finds overwhelming. It's how that individual processes the experience, how they take it in, and how their nervous system understands that experience. If they understand it as overwhelming and too much, then it's going to be processed as trauma for that individual. Another individual could experience exactly the same thing at exactly the same time and not be traumatized by it because it isn't the event, it's the way the individual perceives the event. So just keep that in mind as in the as I continue talking, and I'll mention trauma. Keep in mind it's a very individual situation for each individual animal. So what they feel when an experience is overwhelming is that it's too much. They can't cope with it. It's dangerous, or it's too close, or it's happening too fast. Sometimes sensitive individuals just need more time. They just need you to wait a minute for them. Give them a minute so that they can process it in their nervous system the way that they are meant to do it. So it could be too fast or it's too loud, noise sensitive dogs. Um, and just keep in mind that dogs hear sounds in a much different way than we do. They hear much higher frequencies and they hear sounds at a greater distance. I give you tons of examples of that, but I want to move on. And then something that is too different. If it's different, like I mentioned, the piece of outdoor furniture that was moved, it looks different. So it's high risk because there's a change that they need to process. So this is the way that information is taken in, and it doesn't matter. This is like a this is like a wake-up call for all of us. It doesn't matter how we see these things. What matters is how the dog sees it, and their nervous system is going to process it in their own way. It might be different from the way we do, but we have to remember that to understand them and to help them, we need to accept how they are processing things and not judge them because they're different from us. Okay. So let's talk about the stress sequence. And I'm just going to go, this is a very kind of broad view of what happens. And this is the sequence from one extreme to the other. And not everyone and not every situation has this complete sequence, but these are the possibilities. These are the extremes. So we start with an animal that is in a calm state, rest, digest, relaxed, and then is alerted to something. It could be a startle response. It could be just something that it's some kind of sensory response, something they see or smell or hear. It could be touch. A dog can be startled if they're touched in some dogs, if they're touched in a certain way, they can startle. Also, if they're in pain, they can startle if they're touched, or they can become alert. So, and alerting is a survival mechanism. It's important, it's necessary, and it's normal. So the next step after alert is this something that I have to deal with? All right, so I notice something, I hear a sound. What is that? Is it safe? Do I have to deal with it? Do I need to approach it? Do I need to retreat from it? And that is a stress response. And again, that's a survival mechanism. That's normal. And there are probably countless times throughout any typical day that all of us have a startle, stress, bounce back. It happens all the time. So when an individual goes into a stress response, the healthy thing, if the event is not something that is dangerous, then to recognize it and to bounce back to what we call homeostasis, which means that the nervous system is balanced and functioning in a normal way. But if the stress increases, if it is dangerous, if it is a threat, or if the individual perceives it as dangerous and a threat, imagine dogs that lunge and bark at the end of the leash when they see another dog. I bet some of you may have that situation happening. So imagine that. And then where is that coming from? Why is the dog behaving in such an over-the-top manner when it's just another dog? Just another dog is our perception. For some reason, that dog, the dog that is stressed and reacting, sees that other dog as a threat. Now, maybe that other dog is perfectly fine and is not a threat at all, but it doesn't matter, does it? Because if the sensitive or traumatized dog perceives that as a threat, then the threat is real to him. And if he can't deal with it, and sometimes um, they're in a situation where they start to feel cornered, it's too close. It's coming at me too fast. I have no escape. I feel trapped. So then the dog goes into what we call overwhelm, and that's a trauma response. It's a trauma response because the animal is perceiving that he is helpless to control that threat. There's nothing else he can do. So he's powerless, and the response is freeze. If we back up a little bit to a stress response, that can go into fight or flight. That's mobilization. That's do something. There's the pot is boiling over on the stove. All of a sudden, you're startled because you realize it. Maybe you see it or you smell it, you hear it. Your senses alert you to something that's going on. So you run over to that, you take action, you do what you need to do, and then things go back to normal and you can bounce back. But if the pot boiling over on the stove is instead of that, it's like an explosion or it's something really threatening and dangerous that you have no control over, then you're going to want to escape. That's the normal response. When a dog can't escape, he feels trapped, helpless, and in his only chance at survival is to freeze. And freezing leads to shutdown, and shutdown is disassociation. The animals in the wild will play dead as a survival mechanism. It's something that they instinctively understand how to do. And as soon as the threat is gone, then they go back to normal. They bounce back. But our dogs are often not able to do that. They can stay in that freeze and shut down mode, or they can keep reverting back to that stress state where they felt trapped, and so they react. So that's where that anxiety is coming from. Now, the good news is that we can interrupt this sequence, but how we interrupt it and when we do it matters, because that's going to determine whether or not our actions have the effect that we want. So let's move on. Okay, you can interrupt your dog's stress patterns with simple everyday strategies that feel natural and don't rely on training or control. And I think the thing that bewilders so many people, and I've seen this with clients that I've worked with, people who've come into my program, they're desperately trying to do things to help their dogs. But what they're doing feels so complicated, and they're constantly second guessing themselves. Did I do it right? Did I skip something? Did I make a mistake? How come it's not working? And they are constantly in this state of self-doubt and self-blame. So we want to get rid of all that guilt because it's not necessary. It certainly doesn't serve you, it doesn't serve your dog, and it's just not necessary. So the things that really work are the things that feel natural, the things that you can just do without having to overthink them. Okay. And what I want you to understand is that resilience is a cycle. I mentioned a little bit ago that, in a typical day, we can bounce back and forth from being relaxed to being alert or startled, to going into a stress response, dealing with whatever it is, and then bouncing back to normal and going on with our day. The problem comes for us and for the dogs too when we don't have bounce back time. When we get one stress response after another and they pile up, and we don't have any recovery opportunity in between. And so then that leads to overwhelm because there's no opportunity to bounce back. So this circle of resilience, you see, big dots, little dots, and so forth, a little bit of stress and then settling down, and then a little bit of stress and then settling down. And if there's enough space between those experiences, then we can go on about our day in a normal way because stress is a part of life. We can't avoid it, and even if we could, we really wouldn't want to because it's how we learn how to cope. It makes us, that saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Well, that's kind of an extreme, but stress, if we cope with everyday stress, it does help us to recover and makes us stronger. Okay, I want to talk about um, the circle of security, and I'm just going to describe this briefly. And I want you to remember the basics of it. If you want to take a screenshot of this, by all means, go ahead. Um, I'm going to come back to it, but this is like one of the core values of how I work with people in my programs, because we need to understand how this circle of security works in order to work effectively with our dogs. Now, I need to tell you that this is not, that I didn't make this up. This isn't original with me. This comes from a parenting program, parenting human children. And it's called the Circle of Security. You can actually Google it and look it up, and you'll find all this information about parenting. But when I went into this and started to research it, everything that I read was applicable to the way we work with our dogs. Because we need to understand that both we and our dogs have a mammalian nervous system. And mammalian nervous systems, we're mammals, right? Um, have many, many things in common. Now, there are some obvious differences between ourselves and dogs, of course. Their sensory systems are much more fine-tuned than ours are. Um, but we need to understand that uh, we have so much in common with dogs that the way we feel and understand things and the way we process things with our own nervous system can be applied to dogs. And what that leads us to is an empathy when we're working with our dogs. Allows us to understand them and to care for them with compassion. This circle of security is continuous, which means that an individual doesn't stay at any one point on this circle for any length of time. There's constant movement. So we'll start on the left-hand side with a safe haven. And safety is the foundation emotion that all individuals must feel in order to make any progress at all, in order to learn, in order to develop, in order to mature, in order to grow. So we start with feeling safety, and one of the first things that we do if we bring a dog into our lives, whether it's a puppy, whether it's a dog we've rescued, whether it's an older dog, we want that dog to feel safe. And understanding how we work to make them safe is the key. So we want to give them comfort, let them know that we're there, we're present for them, we are with them. The concept of presence, I'm here for you, I'm with you. Think about the effect that that has on a human, on a distressed child, for example, or with between two adults. if there is a compassionate human that says, I understand, I'm here for you, you're fine, you're doing okay, it's not your fault, that kind of thing. That makes you feel safe rather than being judged or blamed. So in the safe haven, the purpose of the safe haven is a connection between the dog, we're going to say dog and person, and what your job is as the companion, the comforter, the safe haven is to help the dog organize their feelings. And the strategy that I'm going to give you is keyed to exactly that. Because if feelings get chaotic, they feel unsafe. But when feelings are organized, then we can cope. And so building self-esteem, self-confidence, I can do this, I can cope with this, I can deal with it. And when an animal feels confident, then they naturally want to go and explore. There is an emotional system that I'm not going to talk about now because it would take the rest of the day. It's called the seeking system, and it is a very powerful system. It drives animals to want to explore, to learn, to discover. But in the process of exploring, uh, the individual could encounter some danger, could become frightened and fearful. But the way they cope with that is knowing that they can return to safety. So always having that safe haven to return to is key. So keep those thoughts in mind because I'm going to come back to them a little bit later. So let's look at why traditional approaches are unsuccessful with anxious dogs. And, one of the things that I often do with my students is we look at photos of dogs and people. And I want you to just take a look at what's going on in this picture and look at the person and look at the dog. Are they connected or are they disconnected? So I'm just going to kind of leave you with that thought. I think I might be able to, let me see. No, that didn't work. Okay. I thought I might have been able to get rid of that little red line, but I'm not going to take time to worry about that now. I hope it doesn't bother you. Um, so I want you to look at the dog's body language and the person's body language. I'll just point out a couple of things to you. Do you see that the expression, we look at facial expressions because dogs have facial expressions. You know that if you've ever looked at your dog's face, there are definite facial expressions that reflect feelings. So if you look at the facial expression of the dog and of the person, do you see a connection or do you see a disconnect? So you might want to jot down the answer to that. Um, and then the body language of the dog. If you had to caption that dog's body language, if you had to like a 3 or 4 word caption, what might you say for that? If you have any ideas with that. And I'll give you a hint. What direction is the dog leaning? He's leaning away from the person, isn't he? So that tells you something. So just ponder those things for a moment, and we're going to move on. And there are going to be some other pictures that we're going to be looking at. So I'll get to that. All right. So in order to understand why the traditional approaches are not always successful with dogs, we need to understand what's going on inside the dog to understand what these outside methods are intended to do. So for all of us, we have what's called a window of tolerance. And all that means is that when we are within our window of tolerance, we can cope with whatever's going on. We might feel calm and focused and relaxed, but we can adjust. If something unexpected happens, we might startle, we might be stressed for a moment, but we cope. We don't get overwhelmed, we don't get traumatized. That's window of tolerance. Everybody's window of tolerance is different. Within dogs, their window of tolerance is different. And the window of tolerance for the same person or the same dog can change from day to day, or sometimes even from hour to hour. So just keep that in mind, that we always have to question, is this experience for my dog within his window of tolerance? Now, what happens if it's outside the window of tolerance? So let's look at hyperarousal first. When something happens that is too much, too long, too loud, that's too much, and the dog has a fight or flight response, right? Because he's feeling overwhelmed. It's outside his window of tolerance. He can't cope with it, so he wants to escape. But what if he can't escape? What if he feels trapped? What if he's contained in a space, like in a room, in a fenced area? Why do dogs fence fight? In a crate or on a leash, where he doesn't have the ability to escape, and what his nervous system is screaming at him is escape, run away, fight or flight. And if he can't run away, and if he can't fight because it's too much, or it's too loud, or there's no way to make the thing go away, then the dog goes down into hypoarousal, which is shut down. It's a trauma response. It's helplessness, feeling trapped. Um, the F words for that are fawn, where you'll see dogs that roll over on their backs or curl up into a ball, or or contract their whole bodies and try to shrink. They will freeze. Sometimes they will collapse. A flop response is that's what that literally means, is that they literally collapse. They're immobilized, they're disengaged, disassociated. Disassociation is a survival mechanism. And they become emotionally numb and shut down. And the problem here is that the stillness is often misunderstood completely. Oh, look, the dog is quiet. He must be okay. He must be calm now. But a trained eye, an experienced eye, will immediately recognize the difference between a dog that is relaxed and a dog that is shut down. Both of them are still. One is traumatized, one is not. And we can't treat a trauma response as if it were just, oh, the dog is upset, so I'm going to, give him some treats and that'll help him. When an animal is in a trauma response, that is like critical 911 emergency. You can't treat it like it's just the dog is stressed. Because stress is something that we can cope with. Stress happens in the window of tolerance, and we can cope with it. It's a learning experience a lot of times. We say, well, that happened. I learned my lesson, you know? Um, but a trauma response is like, call 911. This is an emergency. This is life or death emotionally. Okay, now let's look at window of tolerance a little bit, because this is where we need to focus our attention. Dogs that are having a trauma response is a completely different thing. I'm not going to talk about that in this webinar because it's something that takes a lot more detailed time and practice in order to work through that. That's not a simple thing. What I'm going to teach you is something simple. And where it is effective is if you're working within the dog's window of tolerance. So there's a couple of little candles there. And those candles represent stress, a stressful experience. And so that window of tolerance, things are heating up a little bit. And so a couple of little stressful experiences, even if there's no time to recover in between, probably the individual is going to be okay. They'll cope. But suppose we have a whole bunch of candles, a whole bunch of stress, or if we have one experience that is really over the top stressful, or if we have layers and layers, one after the other, things piling up, we get to the point where the dog either goes into hyperarousal like this little guy or shuts down like this little guy. Okay. So what we need to do is find out how to interrupt the sequence of candles, how to put them out before they become too much. The ability to bounce back from stress leads to a more resilient dog and a calmer you. And that's our goal. That's what we need to help our dogs do. We have to recognize when the candles are accumulating and we need to start putting them out. And I'm going to show you how to do that. And the bonus is, notice this last part of this, a resilient dog and a calmer you. Because what happens when you employ this calming strategy for your dog, you are automatically calming yourself. It just happens automatically because it's like if you jump in the pool, you're going to get wet. Okay. So finally, one simple evidence-based strategy that expands a dog's capacity to cope with stress. So think about window of tolerance. That's another term for capacity to cope with stress. What we want to do for our sensitive dogs is little by little expand that window of capacity, make it a little bigger, and then maybe it's going to shrink if a series of stressful things happen or one really stressful thing happens, it might contract a little bit, but never as badly as it was before we expanded it. So little by little, it's going to grow and grow. And this takes time. It's not something there's no magic wand here. This takes time. And the key is that you have to be consistent. You have to be willing to understand that the small little tiny bits of progress, I call them glimmers. The little glimmers that's the gold. It's like all the little grains of sand on this beach. They accumulate to make a beautiful beach. But just one of them isn't really going to do very much. So, and they're tiny, but that's okay. That's part of what creates the beautiful picture. So, what we're going to look at is small, brief actions can have a lasting impact on your dog's resilience and on your peace of mind. So these are going to be tiny actions, and that's why they're so easy. And that's why they feel so natural, because you can't overthink this. It's just something that you're going to naturally do. So here we go. We have to remember that when a dog is uncertain, like, why is that piece of furniture in the wrong place? Who is that at the door? Why is that dog coming toward me when I want to run away? Uncertainty feels unsafe. So the nervous system, remember this is the sequence. The nervous system will startle. So there's an alert. What is that? What's going on? Stress response. Is it safe? What am I supposed to do? And then overwhelm. Is it too much? Can I cope with it? And the response is if we are helping the dog cope, the response that we're going for is that we want recovery, bounce back. So what do I mean by bounce back? Think of the sequence that we've been talking about. There's an alert, a startle, stress, and then coming back to normal because you coped with the stress. The stress was not outside your window of tolerance. So that's bounce back. Some sensitive individuals or some anxious individuals have difficulty bouncing back because anxiety makes it hard to bounce back because we don't trust ourselves
Come
enough.
on now, fucking wait.
Okay, would you mute your phone, please? Um, so we want the dog to recover and to bounce back to homeostasis. Homeostasis is where the body, the nervous
Give
system,
me a break.
all the biology and physiology. So, guys, whoever is unmuted, please mute yourself. I can go in and do it, but I don't want to take the time. So it's bouncing back to homeostasis. And when that happens, what you create is a felt sense of safety. Felt sense. The animal has to feel safe. Whether you know or not that the animal is safe is not relevant. Whether you feel safe, yeah, that might be relevant if you feel safe, because your feelings are going to be transmitted to the dog. But what you know doesn't matter. It's what the dog believes and what the dog feels. That's the important thing. Okay. So before we go on to do this, there's one more factor that we need to understand, and that's how an animal's energy field and how they get sensory input into their nervous system from the environment around them. And they pick up energetic signals, and we all have an energy field. It's an electrical, a magnetic field. It's the energy that keeps us alive, that indicates that we're alive. And animals have it too. But an animal's energy field is different from ours because they need to sense a lot more um, factors that affect their survival. So a dog can sense the physical presence of something relevant to him at a much, much greater distance than we can. I mean, we can sense a physical presence if the person is close by, but if they're far away from us, like yards and yards and yards away from us, we may not sense it. We'd have to see it, but we wouldn't have that physical sensation of somebody there. They can sense emotional feelings. Dogs can sense the emotional state of those around them. They can sense the emotional state and of intentions of another animal. That's why dogs react one way to one dog and a different way completely to a different dog. It has to do with that, the inner emotional state of that individual and whether they're in conflict or whether they're aligned. And mental, spiritual for animals, we think of it as instinct. So for spiritual, it's instinctual sense, what their instinct sense of what's going on around them. So as you're working with your dog on this strategy, I want you to be aware that if you're in proximity to your dog, and you don't have to be right next to your dog, you don't have to be physically touching your dog, but your dog can sense your emotions, your intentions, your physical presence, your everything that you are feeling internally. Your dog can sense it, even if you are at a distance from the dog. So just keep that point in mind because that's really important. All right, so the key to this is your voice. Your voice is a bridge. It connects you to your dog emotionally, instinctively, mentally, even physically, because your dog is processing your voice physically with his hearing. Right? So we're going to talk about the key to the strategy is how you use your voice. And that's what I meant before when I said it's natural. We all talk, right? We use our voices. But I'm going to teach you a way to use your voice that is very specific, very intentional, and is designed to create a specific response in your dog. You're going to tap in to the energy of your voice. And the way that you do that is this is going to take a little bit of practice, but it's going to feel natural. And the only way to make this feel easy for you is to just do it and not overthink it and not think, oh, am I doing it right? Am I missing something? Just do it. If you miss something the first time or the second time or the fifth time, that's okay. You build as you go along, and you're going to be talking to your dog from now on, and you've probably been talking to your dog. So this isn't something that you only get one shot at. So you're going to tap into the energy of your voice. So what does that mean? It means the tone of your voice. Um, Tone comes from intention. And I put intention down at the bottom of this list here, but it really infuses everything. Tone comes from intention. What is the overriding um, emotion that you are feeling as you are speaking to your dog? Is it loving care? Is it compassion? Is it empathy? Is it understanding? And if those are the things you're feeling, your voice is going to express that. And let me say this right at the beginning. You can't fake this. The dog knows. You can't pretend. And that's why we have dogs. That's one of the reasons that people complain my dog doesn't listen to me, is because there's a disconnect between what you're saying and what your intention is, and is what you're authentically feeling. So this has to be authentic. It has to be real. And then the volume. If if a child is distressed, let's say they come home from the playground and something scary happened and they're upset. How are you going to modulate the volume of your voice when you speak to the child? You're going to speak in a very loud voice? No. You're going to speak slowly and softly. You're going to lower the pitch of your voice because lower pitches are more soothing to dogs. Higher pitches agitate them. And just, fun fact, because dogs hear much higher frequencies than we do, they can hear a mouse squeaking in the weeds. And sometimes you'll be walking your dog and all of a sudden they'll alert and they'll look at something and they'll maybe like pulling the leash towards something over in the grass and you have no idea what it is. Maybe that's what it is. But higher pitches, dogs can hear those higher pitches and they agitate them. They trigger a predator response. So you want to lower the pitch of your voice, speak in a low volume, let the rhythm of your voice feel natural. The pace, speak slowly and pause. Sometimes, because when you pause, you're going to take a breath. Now, you can speak in words. And one of the things that people do with their dogs, and I encourage them to try this, is that they will sing, or hum. And why does that work? Why does that matter? Uh, because when you're using your voice, your vocal cords are vibrating. And a very, very important part of your nervous system comes from the base of your brain and down the sides of your neck and into the rest of your body. It's called the vagus nerve. And when you are vibrating your vocal cords in this slow, easy way, the vibration, the frequency stimulates your vagus nerve and it creates a sense of calm in your body as well as in your dog's body. I'll tell you a kind of a funny little story as an example of what I'm talking about. Not long ago, I volunteered to raise two little puppies for a local rescue. And I was only going to have them for a short time because they were puppies and they were going to be adopted. Um, but I went to pick them up and they were 7 weeks old. And I had to drive them home, and it was about a 45, 50-minute drive to get home with the puppies in the car. And of course, puppies are going to, there's two of them, so the puppies weren't alone, thank goodness. Um, and you know that puppies are going to be stressed when they get into a new environment. And I hated that they were stressed. But for safety reasons, they had to stay in their little crate. So they were right behind me in the car. And so what I started to do was sing. Now, I'm not the world's greatest singer, trust me on that. I don't sing that well. But the puppies needed to hear a voice. And they needed to hear a voice that was comforting. And they needed to hear something that had some rhythm to it because rhythm creates a sense of predictability, a sense of um, expectation, like waiting to see the next thing. Is this going to repeat the cycle? And so it got the puppy's attention. So I tried a bunch of different, little songs that to see which one they liked. And the one that they liked, you're going to laugh, the one that they liked was Zippity Doo Dah. And so I sang that for about 45 minutes all the way home. And you want to talk about being sick of that. But what happened was the puppies stopped crying because of voice. So what you're going to do, so that's the sound of your voice. Oh goodness, look at all those red lines. I don't know why that's happening. Um, so the sound of your voice is important, but you're going to explain and acknowledge and connect with the dogs. So let me give you a specific example. You're going to narrate for them what's happening, and you're going to do it in a calm, easy way with the intention of soothing them. So I'll give you an example of what this sounds like. Uh, when I got my dog Radar as a puppy, it was right before COVID, so he wasn't socialized in the normal way. And every time something, a truck or a delivery or something came to the house, he would get really frantic because it was new and he didn't understand it. And so I needed to talk to him. So what I did was explain to him what it was in complete sentences as if I were talking to a person. And I did that not because I thought he would understand the sentences. I really don't know whether he did or not. But that wasn't my purpose. My reason for speaking in complete sentences was that they were making sense to me. And by doing that, I was naturally controlling the rhythm and the pace and the volume of what I was saying. So I was explaining to him. First, I had to acknowledge that he was upset. So I said, I know that that is upsetting you. I know that looks different. And I told him what it was. That is the UPS truck. and they're bringing us something, and that man is going to walk toward the house. He's carrying something. I wonder what that is. So I would talk to him about that. My effort was to connect him to me and to what was going on. So we had kind of a triangle connection of that because I was perceiving it as safe. He was perceiving me as safe, and hopefully he could connect that that thing he was looking at was safe. And so we all have what's called mirror neurons. And so his nervous system began to mirror my nervous system because I was intentionally connecting to him. So there are some things that you have to be careful to avoid because this will cancel out everything that you're doing. One of them is don't instruct. So I didn't tell him, stop barking, calm down, that's okay, you don't have to worry. It's nothing to be afraid of. So I wasn't, don't instruct, don't admonish, don't redirect. It's important that the dog is able to look at the thing that feels threatening to him, look at it, process it in a way that feels safe. And don't ignore the dog and just let him bark and bark and bark. And this last one might sound a little strange to you, but don't reward the dog either. And why not? Because it's superfluous. And by reward, I'm talking about like give him treats or pet him or say, good dog, good dog. I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing that. But in this situation, it's superfluous and it kind of dilutes the real purpose of what you're doing. The purpose is to connect with your dog on an emotional level and create a circle of security where you are the safe haven. He is free to explore that new experience if he wants to. And at this point, he might only explore it by looking at it and still feeling safe in the bubble that you're creating for him, being near him, next to him, talking to him. So I hope this is all making sense to you guys. All right. So this is an example. I told you we'd get to more pictures later. I love to use pictures as an example because, you know, they say pictures worth 1,000 words. So I want you to look at what's going on between this person and this dog. Let me just see something here. I want to see. Okay, I keep trying. I keep hoping that I can get rid of those lines, but I don't want to take the time. All right, so let's look at this dog, and I want you to just assess what you think is going on between the dog and the person. The dog is. I want you to notice what he's doing with his paws, because one of the things that I talk about a lot in my programs with clients is allowing the dogs to feel grounded, connected to the earth, being present in the world around them. That is so important to feel safe. So the dog is putting his paws on the hand of the person. It doesn't look like the person is restraining the dog in any way. That's an open hand. The dog is resting his paws there. And so there's a sense of grounding. There are a few stress signs in the dog's facial expression, but it could be that the dog is coming down from a sense, from an experience of being stressed. Still feeling some of those candles are still burning, but they're being gradually extinguished. So what the person might be saying to this dog is something like what I just described to you before. I know that that was scary for you. I understand, but don't worry, I'm right here. We'll go through it together. We'll look at it together. And I'm right here with you, and let's go ahead and see what's going on. And then start to narrate what it is. I see that truck is stopping and there's a man coming in. Here's what he's going to do. You can also narrate what's going to happen. Dogs that get upset when you leave, I'm not talking about severe separation anxiety here, but dogs that are uncomfortable and uneasy when you leave the house. Some people are, believe, and this is a mistake, I believe, that it's best to just sneak out. Don't let the dog see you leave. But that makes it worse because all of a sudden the dog goes into a startle response. Where are you? Where are you? And they start to look for you, and the stress starts to escalate, and then they become really upset. So, how can you use your voice to prevent that from happening? Tell the dog what you're going to do. I do that a lot when I'm leaving the house, even though my dogs, most of them don't care if I go or if I stay, but because they're so used to me coming and going and coming back. And that's the thing, the dog needs to understand that you're going to come back. So just explain, I have to go grocery shopping. I'm going to be gone for a little while, but don't worry, I'm going to come back. I'm going to come back, and then we're going to go out in the yard and play fetch, whatever. Speak in full sentences because that has meaning for you. And whether or not the dog understands the words doesn't matter because what the dog does understand through his energy field is he picks up on the emotion and the physical sensations in your body. He picks up on the intention behind it. And that's an instinct that dogs have. Okay. Compare that last picture to this one. How does this dog look? Does this dog look like his stress is escalating or coming down? Does the dog look like he's enjoying being hugged? Is there a connection or a disconnection between the expression on the person's face and the expression on the dog's face? So we have to be really tuned in to how our dogs are processing the things around them. If they are escalating their stress, then we have to improve our sense of calmness. We have to continue to use our voice. It took a while before those little 7-week-old puppies stopped crying. They didn't stop right away. And they would stop for a while, then they would start up again a little bit, and I would keep singing, and then they would calm down a little bit. Your voice is so much more powerful than you think. It's more powerful even than touch. And this is so important to understand. This is a quote from Carl Jung, and I love a good quote. We cannot change anything until we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses. So when you want to change your dog's stress, your dog's anxiety, your dog's overarousal, if you criticize it, if you judge it, condemnation, right? If you say the dog has to stop, this is not good, this is unacceptable behavior, it has to stop. That oppresses the feeling, it doesn't change it. But if you meet the dog where he is and say, I understand that this is hard for you, but I'm right here and we're going to work on this together. And then what you accomplish is that you and the dog walk side by side and you support the dog by walking beside him. Hope that makes sense. All right, so to summarize, your success path. Take the right action at the right time with the right strategy. The strategy that you have now of using your voice as your calming mechanism, you have it, it's there all the time. You can use it anytime, any place. It's always with you. You don't need any extra equipment. You just need to center and ground yourself and make sure that you're coming from a place of solid intentions where you are intending the highest good for yourself and your dog and for everybody concerned. And that's all you have to do. So the right action, acceptance, the right time, that's what we're getting to next. When is the right time to interrupt? And then the right strategy. So I've mentioned this before. This is an opportunity for you to continue working with this strategy and learn new strategies. It's a 30-day bounce back from stress without guilt, without frustration, little by little, side by side, one day at a time through 30 days of tiny little micro steps moving forward each day. It's not extra time, it's time that you are already spending, but you're going to make a shift that will transform the result that you get. When is the right time? The right time is before your dog, before you get into that trauma response. The right time to interrupt is when your dog is first alert, first sensing, first notices that there's something different. So the dog that notices the furniture was moved, that dog is alerting to that. The time to interrupt that dog's stress response is, oh, let's go look at that. What is it? Let's go check that out together. And then you bring the dog back into bounce back. So I'm inviting you to join me for this Sensitive Dog Resilience Circle. It's a 30-day bounce back challenge. It's basically in 3 parts: acknowledge, accept, and advocate. You're going to acknowledge the dog where he is at the moment. You're going to accept him so that you can walk side by side and advocate for his best interests. Because I'm creating this, I'm reframing material that I already teach and that I've taught over and over again, but I'm reframing it into these tiny little um, uh, daily doses over a 30-day period. And because it's the first time I framed it this way, you get a 50% discount if you use the coupon code. So, and if you use the coupon code and sign up today before 9 p.m. Eastern, and you can figure out whatever that time is in your time zone, I'm adding on this awesome little mini course, which is a perfect companion to the 30-day challenge because it gives you a lot of background information that is very consistent with what we're doing in the challenge. It teaches you how to bring your dog into a more resilient state. So I hope you'll join me for 30 days of that and of heart-centered recoveries, joyful transformations. It's something that I'm very passionate about and that I love to do and that I love to work with people who really, really care about their dogs. Okay, so I see there's a bunch of comments in the chat. So we're going to jump over to Q&A and I'm going to stay here and answer questions for as long as I need to. And if you need to jump off, then that is okay. Let's see. Okay, first question is from Karen. Our dog comes from a breeder after losing 2 litters. She came to us kennel trained, but had never been inside the home. She was let outside. Not by kennel trained, I'm assuming you mean crate trained. Um, she was let outside some during the day. She has come a long way, but she has found a safe place on the couch and will rarely leave the couch. She will sometimes respond to asking her if she wants to go outside, but will not go to her water dish to drink, even when thirsty. This is stressful for us. Yeah, I bet it is. It sounds that way. And perhaps, well, it is stressful for the dog too, I'm sure. How do we get her to come out of her shell? I was able to teach her to go up the stairs in about a week, but she does not seem interested in learning, or I am not approaching training correctly. She will crawl over to us um, when we sit near us on the couch and let us scratch and pet her. But she will not come next to us. Any help you could offer would be appreciated. Thanks, Karen. Okay, Karen, I don't know if you're still here. Um, if you are, you can just kind of unmute real quick and say yes. If you are. Um, so I'll start out by saying that there's no real quick answer or easy fix to this, and I'm sure you're probably aware of that already. Um, this dog needs to be worked with at her own pace. And I know that might seem frustrating to you because it seems like it's like so slow, right? So slow. Um, but in order to give you a specific practice for her, I would need to know a little bit more about her background and have a conversation about it. Um, I'm sure that the work that we do, if you're at all interested in joining the Resilience Circle, the 30-day bounce back challenge, if you're at all attracted to doing that, I know that the practices that you learn there will definitely help you. But what I can say, just to give you a general answer, is to listen to the replay of this webinar and talk to her using the explanations that I gave you of speaking in a slow, modulated voice, not expecting her to do anything, just letting her know. And I think it's important for you to tell her, I understand that you feel safe here on the couch, and this is where you need to be. And I'm right here, and that's okay. You can stay there if you want to. Um, or you can jump down if you feel like it. But I'm just kind of making up those words. You express it in a way that feels comfortable to you. But basically, you want to tell her, number one, that you understand, you accept what she needs right now, that it's okay, and that you're right there with her, and that you're not going to leave her. You're right there beside her. So Karen, are you still here? I know that some people had to leave. Yes? No? If not, okay, hopefully you'll hear that answer on the replay. Oh, possible to remove the red scribbles. I wish. I tried. But yeah, I know they're very annoying, right? It was annoying to me too. Um, yeah, so yes, that in that first picture there was a disconnection, definite disconnection for that. Mhm. Yep, some of you nailed it. You got it right on the market, right on the money. Dog is leaning away. Yes. I'll give you my paw if I must. Right. Disconnect with the person, but dog is potentially conflicted because I'm guessing that the dog is looking at a potential food reward, treat in hand, treat pouch. Could be. Yeah. We don't really know. The thing with the pictures is there's so much interpretation that we do. We see like a moment in time, but they're also very valuable because they give us a chance to really freeze frame something and say what's really going on here in this moment in time. So that does give us some insight. Okay, Martha has a question. Um, I would not say my dog is sensitive, fearful, or anxious. She's not traumatized and she is a very brave, outgoing dog, but she gets totally over aroused when she's in drive. And once I see her starting to get aroused, it's hard to prevent her nervous system from boiling over and getting higher and higher. She shakes, whines, and her pupils dilate, and she has little self-control when she gets excited. I've been working on ways to desensitize her to her triggers. Her triggers are usually prey drive related or a conditioned predictor of what's to come that is prey related, such as the sound of a whistle or the words guns up. Okay, so this is a gun dog. All right. Overall, prey drive related triggers include hunting, swimming, and chasing, which even includes running agility and fast healing and obedience. I've been trying to get her able to be calmer and less intense. Uh, does what you do apply to a dog such as this? Um, okay. So uh if you can if you're still here, let me see. If you're still here, Martha, um, you can either raise your hand so that you'll pop up to the top of the list here, or you can just unmute and talk to me. But to answer your question,
I'm unmuted. Am I?
okay,
You
that's
hear me?
yes, Martha, I see you. Yes, I see her. Okay, yeah, I see her.
See
She's
her?
alert.
That's
Yep.
excited. That's excited Sadie about ready to do something bad.
Okay. All right. I see it. Okay, so to answer your question, yes, of course, because that kind of over-arousal also is very expensive energetically for the dog. It
And
drains,
me.
and you, yeah, I bet. Um, so yes, we can help that. And you mentioned desensitization, and I didn't get into it in this webinar, but I've spoken about it before, and I even have a little course that stop desensitizing your sensitive dog. Um, Her sensitivities are different from a dog that's anxious. But she would probably come under the category of what we call a fizzy dog. Dogs that get really, really, really bubbling over and excited. You call it boiling over, same thing. Um, but that is very stressful on the nervous system. And is she a hunting dog? Does she hunt?
Yeah, I'm working on Master Hunter with her,
Okay.
and therein lies my problem.
Yeah. Okay.
I have trouble controlling her. She's awesome.
Hmm.
Her work is great, but I have trouble doing junior hunter behaviors with her
Yeah.
because I fail at the line
Hmm.
a lot and at bringing back the bird
Okay.
due to
Yeah.
excitement of her. And
Yeah.
I'm doing pretty good staying calm.
Okay. All right. So what you need to do is train her outside of the stress situation, not in the stress situation. So, in other words, she has to come to the line prepared with skills to cope with that level of excitement. So what often happens is people say, I know where the problem is. The problem is like you just said, at the line, she doesn't wait. Or she gets too excited, or she doesn't respond appropriately or whatever. But that's not the time to train that behavior, because if the dog is over aroused, their learning capacity is diminished considerably. They're not in a mental state to learn new things. It has nothing to do with intelligence. It has to do with how the nervous system functions and how we as mammals are hardwired. And when we're in a high arousal state, we are not, we don't have the capacity to learn new things. So if you want her to learn this, she needs to learn it in a situation where she's already in a calm and focused state where she can learn. And she needs to learn a skill that she can take with her to the line. Has nothing to do with teaching her to wait at the line. Is this making sense to you, Martha?
Yeah, I train her all the time at low arousal, and she's pretty stinking good. And I've got some holding blind skills that I've trained into her that help a lot, but she can still,
Yeah,
when
so
push
let
comes
me,
to shove and she's high, she'll start bubbling over again and lose it, even though she
yeah,
knows those skills when she's not aroused.
okay. So let me just expand a little bit. The work that I'm talking about is not about training behaviors, because it sounds like that's what you're doing. You're training behaviors, which is important. You need to do that.
Yeah, like routines.
Yes, yeah, routines, exactly.
That
And
might not have to do with what you need in the holding blind. They're separate routines.
she needs emotional stamina. She knows the drill. Like you said, she knows the drill,
Hmm.
but she can't follow it when she gets to the situation because she's
Correct.
in emotional overdrive.
Correct.
She needs to learn how to regulate her emotions. And
And
that's
I can
not
see them
trained.
I can see her start losing it at the beginning. I can
Yeah,
see it
yeah,
when she starts to lose it.
yeah.
So I
So,
know the point it starts to happen.
right.
Right.
And those,
So
so that would be your target to work with that. But what I'm emphasizing here is and I know we all come to this work with a lot of cultural conditioning, and some of it is really important and valuable, especially if you have a dog that you're working in some competitive sport, because there's rules and there's, things that the dog is expected to do and you want to pass so that you can move on to the next level. That's why we do it. It's fun. It's a sport. But aside from that, the dog is still an animal with a functioning nervous system. And what you need to work on is outside of what you're training for your sport. I mean, continue doing everything you're doing. I'm not telling you to stop. Everything you're doing sounds right. It sounds like the dog loves it, but she loves it so much that she can't manage it. It's like it's
you're
like
correct.
it's the kid that is playing a sport, but he grabs the ball and just runs wild all over the field and doesn't score. You know what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
it has to be the dog has to learn how to manage her feelings. Does that make sense? So,
Yeah, I just haven't figured. I was using a shoot. What's those rugs that they eat food out of?
oh, a snuffle mat?
Yeah, I was using a snuffle mat some.
Yeah, you can use a snuffle mat, but that's not necessarily going to address the problem that you have. The problem that you have is much deeper than any superficial training that you're doing.
I've noticed.
Yeah. So, yeah, the program that I'm offering would definitely be useful to you. And it depends on how you apply it in the situation. Now, if you want to set up something with me privately, you can email me privately and we can set up an appointment and do an actual um, private consult.
That might be better.
Yeah, we can do that.
It depends. It depends what I can afford.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Of course.
And
Yep.
I can. Will you have your contact in? Can you give it? Can you get my your contact to me?
So, all you have to do is any email that you get from me, just go into your email, reply to it, and I'll get the email.
Okay, and I'll just tell you a Sadie.
Yep, just say this is Martha, and we talked about my high drive hunting dog and blah blah
I'll
blah.
send you. I'll send you that picture of her with it. You know who she
Okay.
is.
Okay, great. All right, good.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Martha. Thanks for that question. Okay. Juliana says, what if the dog goes over threshold immediately when a stimulus comes? How do you break through that? So, when a dog is over threshold, you are past the point where you can use a normal interruption. And yes, it does happen very, very quickly. But one of the things I train people to do is recognize the warning signs because they're already there. They're always there. And even if you don't see the warning signs in the dog, you will learn how to recognize situations that could be potential problems with the dog. Dogs always give a warning sign, but we miss it because we don't know what to look for. So, yeah, so over threshold, you're right. That it's too late. It's too little, too late. And what you have to do is just get the dog out of the situation as quickly as you can, get distance from it, distance from the trigger, um, and then get to work on helping the dog's nervous system and expand its capacity to cope. Okay, and then we have some descriptions of the dogs. Oh, yeah, use the annotate feature. Yeah, I know. I was trying to erase it and I couldn't. Um, okay. Oh, okay. So that's interesting. Disallow annotations from your end. Okay. That's good to know. Okay. Thanks, Stephen, for that. Good information. All right. And then we have a question. How do you communicate these things with a deaf dog? Ah, very good question. All right. Deaf dogs process your intentions in energetically, visually, um, through touch, through so many different ways. Yes, you can, Susan, you can definitely work with a deaf dog. And in fact, if you want to work with someone, I always love to refer people that I know do fabulous work. You can look up Deb Bauer. She specializes in blind and deaf dogs. You can definitely check her, and she would be a lovely person for you to work with. Um, Another question, Crystal says, I have a German Shepherd, and she will not allow me to leave the house without her. I don't think I can get out without sneaking out, but my son says she calms down fairly quick once I am gone. I hope that she will eventually learn to let me go, knowing that I will come back. Do you have other suggestions? Um, Crystal, you need to talk to her. Yes, you need to work on your voice. She suffers from FOMO. Yeah, I can imagine that she probably does. But yeah, you need to work on the narration practice that I described in this webinar. You need to explain to her what's going to happen. I think with a lot of these dogs that get upset when people leave them is that they don't know where you're going. They don't know if you're coming back. They suddenly feel very disorganized and very sensitive. So you need to um, pause for a minute and sit down with her quietly and talk to her about what you're going to do, where you're going to go. You're coming back. Make sure that you reassure her that you will come back and that when you come back, what you're going to do together. And it doesn't have to be any kind of a big deal thing. You can just say, we're going to sit down here and I'll tell you what I did while I was gone or something, just whatever. But you need to have that conversation with her. And I think that's going to start to make a big difference. Julietta says, my dog lunges at people, dogs, bikes, etc. When would be the right time to interrupt with my voice? Okay, so when the dog is lunging, obviously that's not the right time to interrupt. What you would need to do in a case like that with dogs that do these things is that everything has to be slowed down. Even if you're sitting still quietly, and you would use your narration with the dog where the dog could observe the trigger and feel safe. And that's a logistical thing that you would need to work out. And I certainly can help you work it out if if you want my help. I can help you, work out the details of that. But the criteria are you need to slow everything down. The dog has to feel safe, and the safety could be achieved by being at a distance, by being, quiet and still in a safe place. In a park, for example, sitting on a bench far, far away from where the activity is happening. That's just a hypothetical example. Um, but the only time the dog can process what you are saying with your voice is if the dog already feels safe. So when we think about that sequence, it's the startle and the alert, and then the stress response. And while the dog is in the window of tolerance, where they can still process things, where the candles aren't, so accumulated that everything is, too hot, too close, too much, then that is the time to interrupt it. When there are only two or three candles, you can put them out. But if there's like a whole forest fire of candles, you're not going to be able to put it out. So hope that makes sense. Um, okay, Katrina, if you want to talk to me about one-on-one consultation, Katrina, I don't know if you're still here. Lots of folks had to leave. You can reply to any of my emails and ask for that information, and we can get together. Okay. All right. I guess that's it. That's all the questions. So thank you, everybody. And remember that you have until 9 o'clock tonight to join the Resilience Circle. It's going to be daily glimmers, little bits of gold sprinkled on you every day, things that you can start to work on that are simple, that are easy to help your dog. Um, and that's going to go on over a 30-day period. And I love to do this work with people. So I hope that you will join me. So we have some new comments. No, no. Okay. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. Does anybody else have anything they need to ask? Oh, Mark sent me a picture of his dog. Oh, lovely. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. That's a beautiful picture. Oh, there's something about a black dog,
Marilyn,
black background. It's absolutely beautiful. Who somebody want to ask something?
yes, Marilyn, could you explain just a bit more this 30-day experience? Is this an email? Is this a
Oh,
quick Zoom
okay,
call?
sure, sure. Okay. Um, So for 30 days, each day you will get a short video. And this will be in a password protected portal that you will log into. And each day there will be a new video. You'll be able to see the previous videos and review them anytime you want. They'll all be there and they'll accumulate day by day. And each day you will get a small practice that is going to help to regulate your nervous system, regulate your dog's nervous system, and lead step by step toward a goal. During the 30-day process, I will schedule some group meetings, kind of like this, where we can get together, ask questions, have some group coaching. I haven't set the dates for those yet. Um, what I will probably do is once the group is formed, I will present certain dates, and if there's a preference for one or the other, then I'll go with that. So that's basically what it is. It's a step-by-step process. And just to let you know, over the past year, I've done a couple of these 30-day challenges, and I found them to be extremely helpful. And they actually didn't have anything to do with dogs. They had to do with other stuff, but they were extremely helpful. And the reason they were helpful is that when I started, I said, I'm going to follow through with this every single day. And I sort of made it my mission. And the reason I could do that is that the videos were really short, maybe 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, maybe. And the tasks were meaningful. They were easy, but they were meaningful. And I understood what the purpose was. And so it all made sense. And as I was going along, it started to all fall into place and I could see where it was going. And I thought this would be such a great thing to do for my dog clients, especially people who have sensitive
Eddie,
dogs.
can
So
you just
does that answer your
wait a
question?
minute? Marilyn, may I just ask you a quick question?
Sure.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to say thank you. It's been amazing. I'm in the UK. We're 5 hours ahead.
Mhm.
So if all your get together meetings in the 30 days, would they be at the same sort of time, which is 3 o'clock your
Okay,
time?
yeah. So here's the thing. I try to schedule them at a time that will work for the people in the group. So for some of my groups, I have people in the Southern Hemisphere, and that time difference is really, hard to manage. So I try to schedule it for them. If I know that I've got people in the UK and I know you're 5 hours ahead, then I'm going to make an effort to create programs that are not like in the middle of the night for you guys, because that's not fair. So yeah, it's hard with the time zones, but like I say, it's always midnight somewhere. So so the answer to your question is yes, I will try to make it reasonable for you and not expect you to, change your.
Fabulous.
Okay, so
Mind you,
I know it's getting late over there for you guys. So yeah, I try. Um, so anybody else have a question? Okay. Thank you for all the thank yous. I appreciate that. It's good to know that it's helpful. Um, and Stephen gave me a link to get rid of those red spots. Sorry about that, guys. That was so annoying, wasn't it? But I kept trying to go in there to see what I could figure out, but it just didn't work. So anyway, maybe I'll try to figure that out so it won't happen again next time. Okay. Remember, if you sign up before 9 o'clock, that's Eastern time, that's New York time tonight. And sorry about you guys in the UK, that's like middle of the night for you. But anyway, you can, if you sign up, you get that course. And anybody who's already signed up, because there's some people who've already signed up for it, you get that course too. Okay? All right, guys. Thank you so much. Does anybody else have anything before we jump off? Thanks for joining me. Thank you. Thanks, Dawn, for all the thumbs up. Appreciate that. Okay, guys. I will see you all. Thank you so much for attending. Love to work with you. Bye-bye now.